My in-laws were in a car accident. They needed a transfusion, and my blood type was a match. I was about to drive to the hospital to donate. My wife snatched the car keys from my hand. Ethan's flight gets in tonight, she said. I have to go pick him up. I tried to explain. It's your parents, Chloe. They were in a crash. They need my blood. Don't be so petty, Leo. You're just trying to stop me from seeing Ethan. How dare you make up a story about my parents being in an accident? They flew out this morning for their trip. No matter what I said, she wouldn't believe me. She jabbed a finger in my face, her voice rising to a shriek. I see what this is. You're just trying to keep me away from Ethan. Well, fine. You don't want me to go? I'm going. With that, she grabbed my phone off the counter, shoved me into the study with our feverish daughter, and locked the door from the outside. Because of her, my in-laws missed the golden hour for treatment. They never opened their eyes again. And because her fever went untreated for too long, my daughter never woke up either. After the funerals are over, I will make my wife pay for this. In blood. Chloe was in a good mood tonight. After her shower, she sat at her vanity, putting on a full face of makeup. She held a brand new dress up to the mirror, admiring it from every angle. Our daughter, Penny, toddled over to her, her little arms outstretched, wanting to be held. Chloe recoiled with a look of disgust, taking a step back to keep her distance. You got a cold. Don't get your snot all over me. I'm going out. I came out of the kitchen just in time to hear her. Where are you going so late? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Chloe dodged Penny's grasp, her face souring. Ethan's back. I'm picking him up from the airport. Ethan Vance, her childhood sweetheart. I was about to say that Penny was sick, that she needed her mom. But I knew Chloe's temper. If I tried to stop her from going out tonight, she'd burn the house down. Seeing she was already on the verge of an explosion, I quickly scooped Penny into my arms. I tried to change the subject to tell her that her parents had called that afternoon. Their flight was rescheduled because of the weather. But before I could get the words out, my phone rang. An unknown number. Am I speaking with a family member of Robert and Linda Miller? It was the hospital. My in-laws had been in a severe car accident. Massive blood loss. They needed me to come down right away. The nurse on the line added that the hospital's blood bank was running low and asked if anyone in the family with a matching blood type could come donate. I remember my blood type was compatible with both of them. I hung up, handed Penny to Chloe, and reached for the keys on the counter. Seeing me leave Penny with her and grab the keys, Chloe shoved her daughter back at me. What do you think you're doing? The sudden push startled Penny, and she burst into tears. Chloe completely ignored her crying daughter. She stormed over and blocked my path. What's your problem, Leo? You know I need the car to go out, so you deliberately try to take it first? And you think you could just dump Penny on me? Time was critical. I didn't want to argue. I explained as quickly as I could. Your parents were in a car wreck. I have to get to the hospital to give blood. You stay here with Penny tonight. You can come in the morning. I tried to push past her, but she grabbed one of her slippers from the floor and threw it at my head. What the hell is wrong with you, Leo? Are you insane? Just to stop me from seeing Ethan, you're going to curse my parents? While I was raising a hand to my head, she lunged forward and snatched the keys from my grasp. You just don't want me to see him, do you? Your mind is so twisted. There's nothing going on between Ethan and me. If we wanted to be together, we would have gotten together years ago. I clutched my head, fighting back a wave of fury. This wasn't the time to lose my temper. Lives are on the line. It's really them. The hospital is out of their blood type. I have to go donate. Slap. Her hand cracked across my face. She glared at me, her eyes filled with venom. Shut up. Everyone knows from watching TV that you have to be a blood relative to donate. What? Are you related to my parents now? Her eyes darted around, and a look of malicious understanding crossed her face. Leo, I never knew you were this kind of person. Just to keep me from seeing Ethan, you'd wish death on my own parents. Fine. You started this. Don't blame me for what I do next. She turned, scooped up Penny, and walked toward the study. On the way, she pinched Penny hard. Our daughter's wail of pain tore through me, and I followed them into the room. I had walked right into her trap. She locked me and Penny inside, took the car keys, and left to meet her childhood sweetheart. Hashtag chapter 2 Daddy, my head hurts. Terrified by her mother's actions, Penny clung to my leg, begging me to pick her up. I held her close. Her forehead was burning up. Even then, I thought Chloe was just throwing a tantrum, that she wouldn't actually leave us locked in here. Bang! Bang. I pounded on the door. Chloe, stop messing around. Penny has a fever. We're out of Tylenol. We have to get her to a hospital. I yelled for what felt like 10 minutes. Silence. I reflexively reached for my pocket to call her, only then realizing she must have grabbed my phone in the chaos. Looking at Penny, who was whimpering in my arms, I covered her ears and kicked the door with all my strength. But no matter how hard I slammed against it, there was no response. It was clear Chloe had meant it. She had abandoned us. This was a study with no windows. There was no way to call for help. I started hammering my fists against the walls in a frenzy, but then I remembered. This was a 1-unit-per-floor apartment. There were no next-door neighbors. I watched Penny's eyes flutter and close in my arms, her consciousness fading. My heart felt like it was being ripped apart. Penny, don't be scared. Daddy will find a way to get you out. My only hope was a neighbor downstairs. I gently laid Penny down in a safe corner, picked up a heavy oak chair, and started smashing it against the floor. When the chair splintered, I shoved over the bookshelf. I was trying to make enough noise to annoy the downstairs neighbor into coming up to complain. I don't know how long it took, but finally, I heard the doorbell ring. When there was no answer, the ringing was replaced by knocking, the force gradually increasing. After a few minutes, the knocking stopped, and the footsteps faded away. I wrecked everything in the room I could move. Sometime later, the frantic knocking returned. I prayed that the neighbor had realized something was wrong, that they would call the police. Soon, the knocking stopped again. An eternity seemed to pass before I heard the sound of a door being forced open. I figured it had to be the police. I threw myself against the study door, pounding on it like a madman. "Is anyone in there?" A voice called out. "We're locked in. Help us." I roared back. The police officer told me to stand back, so I wouldn't get hurt. Crack! The door burst open. I saw 2 police officers and my downstairs neighbor crowded in the hallway. Relief washed over me. I quickly explained the situation to the officers, then apologized to my neighbor, telling him it was the only thing I could think to do. He waved it off, then his eyes landed on Penny. "Oh my God, your daughter. Her face is blue. Get her to a hospital now." Chloe had taken the car, and it was too late to easily get a ride. My neighbor insisted on driving us. He ran 6 red lights on the way. I kept thanking him over and over. "It's a matter of life and death, man. Don't worry about it," he said, then added grimly, "But brother, I gotta say, your wife is something else. How can anyone lock a sick kid in a room like that?" He trailed off, probably not wanting to upset me further. He was right. They say a mother's love is the strongest force on earth. Right now, I believe some people didn't deserve to be mothers at all. I'd always told myself Chloe was still a kid herself, that she just didn't know how to love Penny yet. That if I gave her time, she'd come around, she'd care more about our family. Now I saw the truth. She didn't love me, and because of that, she resented Penny. Since that was the case, it was time for me to stop expecting anything from her. It was time to end this. At the hospital, Penny was rushed straight into the ER. An hour later, a doctor emerged, his face grim. He just shook his head. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. If she had gotten here sooner." My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the cold linoleum floor. But the tragedy wasn't finished with me. A nurse walked over. "Are you the family of Robert and Linda Miller?" "I'm very sorry to inform you," she said, her voice gentle. Both patients went into shock from blood loss. They didn't make it. As Penny's legal guardian, I signed the paperwork for her cremation. But for my in-laws, I wasn't their next of kin. Chloe had to sign. Swallowing my grief, I borrowed a nurse's phone and called her. The second she heard my voice, she exploded. "Leo, are you out of your mind? You trashed the apartment. Where are you? You get your ass back here right now and clean this up. Ethan hasn't found a place yet, so he's staying with us." My controls snapped. I roared into the phone. "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan, is that all you can think about? Get your ass to the hospital right now and sign the papers to have your parents cremated." There was a cold, mocking laugh on the other end of the line. "Still at it, huh? You really commit to the bit, don't you? You say my parents are dead and I need to sign for their cremation? Fine, I'll play along. I'm not signing. You can tell the hospital to dump their bodies on the street. Let them rot and stink up the whole city." She slammed the phone down. Her voice had been so loud that even without speakerphone, every doctor and nurse nearby had heard her. They all looked at me with pity, mourning the fact that I had a wife like her, and that my in-laws had such a daughter. I had no choice but to tell the hospital staff that Chloe refused to sign. They informed me that if no family member claimed the bodies after 1 week, the hospital would handle the cremation and their ashes would be scattered at sea. After Penny's cremation, I carried her small urn home. Standing outside my apartment, I saw the broken door had been replaced with a new one, fitted with a keypad lock. I didn't know the code. I had to knock. After a minute, I heard an unfamiliar man's voice from inside. The door opened. A face I would never forget stood before me. Ethan Vance. He was wearing the matching set of pajamas I had bought for Chloe and me. A smirk played on his lips. "Who is it?" Chloe's voice called from behind him. I saw her appear, wearing the other half of the set. How pathetic. When I first bought them, Chloe had refused to wear them, saying they were childish. Now, here she was, happily wearing them with her childhood sweetheart. The irony was suffocating. Seeing me, the smile on Chloe's face vanished. "What are you doing back here?" she asked curtly. "This is my home. Am I not allowed to be here?" I glanced at Ethan, who was wearing my slippers. I let out a cold laugh. "If you like my sloppy seconds so much, you can have them." Ethan caught the double meaning. He turned to Chloe with a look of feigned hurt. "Chloe, I don't think Leo wants me here. Maybe I should just pack my things and go." Chloe couldn't stand to see him upset. She stepped in front of him, shielding him like a mother hen. She glared at me. "Leo, were you raised in a barn? He's a guest. If you don't want to see Ethan, then you can get out. You're not welcome here." I stared at her, a profound bitterness rising in my chest. How could I have been so blind as to marry this woman? "Get out. Go on, get out." Chloe shrieked when I didn't move. I was about to retort when her phone rang. She shut her mouth and glanced at the screen. An unknown number. She answered it. "What? What do you mean my parents never showed up for the city tour?" I watched the expression on Chloe's face shift from confusion to worry. It had to be the tour company. Chloe had booked a local one-day tour for her parents. Now they were calling to ask why they were no-shows. Now, I thought, surely she'll believe what I told her. But then Ethan chimed in. "Isn't that a scam? You hear about those all the time. People calling about flight delays to get your info for a full refund." That was all the prompting Chloe needed. She screamed into the phone, "Scammers like you can go to hell. You know, with all the data breaches these days, it's easy for criminals to get your info," Ethan said, his tone reasonable and persuasive. "But why would they call you instead of your parents? Unless someone set this up on purpose." He guided her along, pointing the finger directly at me. Chloe hung up. Convinced Ethan was right, she glared at me. "This was you, wasn't it?" "What?" I was speechless. What did I have to do with this? "Leo, you're unbelievable. How did I never see what a vicious, toxic person you are?" So that was it. She still refused to believe her parents were dead. I was done arguing with her. I had come back for my phone and our marriage certificate. I'd already picked out a plot for Penny, and her burial was this afternoon. I started to walk past them into the apartment, but Ethan deliberately blocked my way. He pointed dramatically at the small urn I was clutching to my chest. Is that what I think it is? An urn?" He turned his head to Chloe. "Don't tell me Leo's going to say your parents' ashes are in that little box." I slapped his pointing hand away from Penny's urn. "Don't you dare point at her," I snarled. "These are my daughter's ashes." "Huh." Chloe laughed, a triumphant look on her face as if she'd caught me in a lie. "Leo, I know you've been shacked up with your mistress for the past 2 days, and you took Penny with you. You think I'm an idiot? Last night, Ethan happened to see the 3 of you out shopping together, and I was still here, being played for a fool. Seeing her so utterly convinced of my infidelity, I couldn't help but laugh. My life was a monotonous triangle: home, office, and Penny's daycare. When would I have had time for an affair? And even if I did, Penny had been pronounced dead 2 nights ago. How could Ethan have possibly seen her last night? "Where's your proof?" I asked. A flicker of panic crossed Ethan's face. He was about to stammer out an excuse when Chloe, ever the defender, jumped in. "Ethan has a good heart. He would never lie. He's not a small-minded monster like you who spends his days cursing my parents." "So no proof, then?" I said, my eyes fixed on Ethan. I saw his confidence swell, buoyed by Chloe's support. "I don't need proof. I trust Ethan's character." If she was going to believe her childhood sweetheart so blindly, then nothing I said would matter. I had originally thought, for Penny's sake, that I might spare Chloe the worst of it. Not anymore. Penny's death was caused by septic shock from a raging fever. But it was Chloe who had locked us in that room, delaying the medical treatment that would have saved her. And my in-laws, they might have survived, but they died because Chloe prevented me from donating blood. 3 lives. That was enough to put Chloe behind bars for the rest of her miserable life, wasn't it? I would call the police. But not yet. I would wait until after the 1-week deadline, after her parents' remains were scattered into the ocean. I was going to make sure Chloe never even had a chance to see her parents one last time. A week later, Chloe had still not come to the hospital to sign the papers and claim the bodies. As per protocol, the hospital had Robert and Linda Miller cremated. Their ashes were scattered at sea. I had been in contact with the funeral home all week, and I'd already drafted the obituary text message. The moment the sea burial was over, I sent it out to all our relatives and friends, informing them of the funeral service the next day. I was fully prepared for Chloe to get the message and come storming over to scream at me. But by the next morning, right before the service was set to begin, I hadn't heard a word from her. Then I remembered. She had blocked me on every platform. That was even better. It would give all our relatives a front row seat to see what a disgrace of a daughter she truly was. Our out-of-state family took the first flight they could get. They arrived at the funeral home, travel-worn and exhausted, only to find me, dressed in a black suit, standing alone at the entrance to greet them. "We're so sorry for your loss, Leo. You have to stay strong," my uncle and aunt said, their voices heavy as they looked at the 3 memorial portraits inside the chapel. "Hey, where's Chloe? Why are you here by yourself?" my cousin asked, looking around. "Oh, Chloe won't be coming," my younger cousin, Jenna, who had never gotten along with Chloe, said with a sneer, holding up her phone. "The ungrateful, which is out watching the sunrise. Must be nice. Her parents and daughter are dead, and she has the time to go hiking and enjoy the scenery." Everyone gathered around Jenna's phone. The screen showed an Instagram post Chloe had uploaded 5 minutes earlier. It was a 9-photo grid, all selfies of her and Ethan at some scenic overlook, the rising sun behind them. They were posed intimately, their chemistry obvious. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to let go of the past to embrace your future. So happy you're back." She had posted it for the world to see. Our relatives saw it. Their faces were masks of disappointment. Jenna, never one to hold back, had already left a comment. "Let go of your parents and daughter to embrace your affair." My other uncle saw Jenna's comment and opened his mouth to scold her for being disrespectful, but then he thought better of it. She was right. He just sighed 3 times. How did that girl turn out like this? When she gets here, I'm going to slap her a few times myself. Our great uncle, the family patriarch, declared, his voice trembling with rage. I'll do it on behalf of her parents. No one tried to talk him out of it. If anything, they thought the punishment was too light. Just as I saw that everyone had arrived and was about to lead them into the chapel to begin the service, I heard Chloe shriek from the parking lot. "Leo, you son of a bitch. My parents are alive, and you're holding a funeral for them?" Her screaming stopped everyone in their tracks. They all turned to look. I stopped too, turned to watch her run towards me, her face contorted with rage. She got right in my face and raised her hand to slap me. But before she could, my great-uncle swung his cane and cracked it hard against the back of her knees. #### Chapter 6. Chloe crumpled to the ground, landing on her knees right in front of me with a loud thud. Jenna couldn't help but snicker. Chloe glared at the crowd of relatives, who were all staring at her with judgment. She scrambled to her feet, infuriated, and pointed a trembling finger at me. "I respect you as an elder, Uncle Ray. But how can you go along with his insanity? My parents are perfectly fine. He's just doing this to curse them." Slap. Uncle Ray's hand struck her face with the force of his outrage. The old man was shaking, and he slammed the end of his cane on the pavement. "You ungrateful child. You don't even know your own parents have passed away. They wasted their lives raising you." Even now, Chloe refused to believe it. She held her chin high. "My parents are on vacation. How could they possibly be dead?" She had been so consumed by Ethan these past 2 weeks that she hadn't even noticed the silence from her parents. If she had an ounce of concern for them, she would have realized something was wrong days ago. "According to their itinerary, they should have been back a while ago," I said, laying out the truth for her, piece by piece. "Why haven't they contacted you?" "They're traveling." "There." "So?" Chloe's voice faltered. She pulled out her phone and looked at the date. It was true. According to the schedule, Her parents should have been home 5 days ago. Come to think of it, it had been over 2 weeks since she'd gotten a text from them. Normally, they would have at least called to say they were back safe. What was going on? Panic began to set in, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to admit it. And think about it, I continued. How long has it been since you've seen Penny? At the mention of our daughter, Chloe sneered. Don't you dare bring up Penny. I'm sure you've stashed her at your mistress's house. The relatives, who had just been condemning Chloe, now turned their questioning gazes on me. The tide of opinion shifted in an instant. Didn't the notice say Penny passed away, too? I saw her picture in the chapel. One of her friends murmured, confused. The comment reached Chloe's ears. Leo, to make me look bad, you'd even drag Penny into this? Just then, Penny's kindergarten teacher, who was on her way to work, happened to pass by. She saw us and came over to offer her condolences. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, you have to take care of yourselves. I'm so sorry for your loss. We've gathered all of Penny's things from her cubby. You can come by and pick them up whenever you're ready. The teacher's words were like a sledgehammer to Chloe's heart. She could disbelieve me, but she couldn't disbelieve the teacher. Teacher, my Penny, when did she? Chloe stammered, as if she'd forgotten how to speak. The teacher gave me a strange look, a silent question in her eyes. How could Penny's own mother not know? It was on the 1st of the month, I said, my voice flat. The 1st. Chloe's eyes bulged, looking as if they might pop out of her skull. She kept repeating the date, the 1st. The 1st. I helpfully reminded her, the night Ethan Vance came back to town. Because you locked us in the study, Penny's fever spiked, and she went into shock. And because there was no one to donate blood, your parents died, too. Impossible. Chloe screamed at me. Impossible. You're all lying to me. I'm going to call them right now. She frantically dialed her father's number. Ring, ring. A familiar ringtone echoed from inside the chapel. Chloe's head snapped up. That's my dad's ringtone. My dad's in there. Hashtag chapter 7. Hearing the ringtone was like finding a lifeline. Chloe shoved me aside and sprinted into the chapel. She followed the sound, her eyes darting around frantically. Finally, she traced it to the memorial display. There, in front of her father's portrait, was his urn. The ringing was coming from inside. She snatched the urn and pulled out her father's phone. As she did, she realized the urn was empty. There were no ashes inside. As if she'd caught me red-handed, she clapped her hands and laughed maniacally. See? Look, there are no ashes in the urn. Ha ha, my dad isn't dead. The other guests murmured, their confused eyes turning to me. Even Uncle Ray looked at me, his voice low. Leo, what's going on? I put on a mask of sorrow and looked at Chloe, who was standing wild-eyed before the portraits. The crowd instinctively parted, clearing a path between us. Chloe, you forced me to do this. Before I could finish, she cut me off. I forced you. You're using my parents' death to manipulate me, to lie to everyone. What is wrong with you? In response, I took out my phone and pressed play. On the wall to the left of the memorial portraits, a large projector screen I had set up descended silently. A video began to play. The first scene was of me, alone, at the crematorium, receiving Penny's small white urn. The next was a shot of that same urn being lowered into the ground. Then, the scene cut to a conversation between me and a hospital administrator. Without a signature from the next of kin, the remains have to be cremated and disposed of according to hospital regulations. The chapel's four-corner speakers then broadcast Chloe's own callous voice, captured from our phone call. You say my parents are dead and I need to sign for their cremation? Fine, I'll play along. I'm not signing. You can tell the hospital to dump their bodies on the street. Let them rot and stink up the whole city. The final scene was of me, alone again, on the deck of a boat, clutching two memorial portraits while a crew member scattered 2 containers of ashes into the churning gray water of the lake. The video ended abruptly. I stared at Chloe's ashen face, my voice cold and precise. You killed your parents, and you killed our daughter. The night you locked us in that room and drove off to meet Ethan Vance, your daughter was dying of a fever, and your parents were bleeding to death. Chloe was trembling so violently she could barely stand. Tears streamed down her face. While you and Ethan were having your tearful reunion at the airport, your daughter was being wheeled into an emergency room, and your parents had already bled out. Shut up. Stop talking. Just stop. She shrieked, lunging at me, trying to cover my mouth. You betrayed me You betrayed our family. You killed our daughter, and you killed your parents. All for another man. Chloe, how can you possibly face them in the afterlife? Do you think they'll forgive you? While they were clinging to life, what were you doing? You were with your lover. You were playing house, having the time of your life. In all that happiness, did you spare even 1 second to think about your daughter or your parents? I was wrong. Please, I'm begging you. Stop talking. I know I was wrong. She collapsed onto the floor, pounding her fists against the ground. When that wasn't enough, she started slapping her own face hard. Stop the theatrics. Even if you beat yourself to death right now, what good would it do? They're not coming back. Your daughter, your parents. They're gone forever, I said, my voice dripping with scorn as I watched her face swell and bleed. Chloe stayed on her knees, slapping herself over and over. Every person in that room believed she deserved it. Not a single soul moved to stop her. After some time, she finally stopped. I thought she had exhausted herself. As she staggered to her feet, I was about to mock her for not even lasting half an hour. But then I saw her lurch towards Uncle Ray and snatch the cane from his hand. My first thought was that she was going to attack someone. Instead, she turned and sprinted out of the funeral home. #### Chapter 8. Leo, go after her. Don't let her do something stupid. Uncle Ray yelled, his familial concern overriding his anger. I ran out just in time to see Chloe reach the curb. Our car was parked right there. She yanked open the passenger side door. Inside, Ethan was waiting. She raised a heavy wooden cane high above her head and, with all her strength, plunged the sharp end into his chest. You liar, she screamed, her voice a raw, broken thing. It's all your fault. You told me you saw Leo with Penny and some other woman. I couldn't make out what Ethan was saying. All I saw was the windshield turning crimson. Blood splattered across Chloe's face and clothes. I froze, terrified to move closer, afraid her murderous rage would turn on me next. You shouldn't tempt fate. The thought had barely crossed my mind when I looked up and saw Chloe, gripping the blood-soaked cane, walking toward me. I backed away in fear. The closer she got, the faster I retreated. It's okay now, she said, her voice eerily calm. It's okay. I killed him. There's no one between us anymore. We could be a family again. I didn't dare say a word, terrified of provoking her. Seeing my silence, her expression twisted into a mask of fury. You don't want to be with me, do you? Is that it? She raised the cane and lunged. My back hit a brick wall. There was nowhere left to run. I watched her charge at me, the cane aimed at my heart, and thought, this is it. At least I'll be with Penny again. In that moment, I wasn't afraid. I felt a sense of release, that I wouldn't have to live in this hell anymore. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. A few seconds later, I heard the cane clatter on the pavement. I opened my eyes. Chloe was gone. Then I saw her, impaled on the decorative wrought iron fence surrounding the funeral home's garden. In her haste to lunge at me, her foot had slipped on the curb. She had stumbled forward, right onto one of the sharp, pointed spires. Blood gushed from her torso like a fountain. People were screaming. Someone was calling 911. When the ambulance arrived, she was barely alive. I saw a flicker of consciousness in her eyes. I leaned down close to her ear and whispered, "You should have paid more attention in biology class. People who are direct blood relatives are the ones who can't donate to each other." I watched them load her onto a stretcher. I begged the paramedics to save her, telling them money was no object. I was prepared to sell the house. I needed her to live, because dying would be too easy for her. My relatives and friends, seeing my devotion, came to comfort me. A few of the older women told me that once this was all over, I should divorce Chloe, and they'd find me a good, decent woman. I politely declined their offers, insisting that Chloe would be my only wife. She was a plague, and now that she had destroyed my life, it was my duty to stay with her forever. I couldn't let her ruin anyone else. After spending over $100,000 on her medical bills, Chloe pulled through. But the life she was left with was a fate worse than death. The fence had pierced her throat. She could never speak again. Her spinal cord was severely damaged. She would never walk again. She spent her days either lying in bed or sitting in a wheelchair while I pushed her out for some sun. The injuries also left her incontinent. Whenever I would wheel her to a crowded park and she soiled herself, she would make guttural, frantic noises, begging me with her eyes to take her home. I would pretend not to understand, leaving her in the most conspicuous spot I could find, letting her watch as people passed by, pinching their noses and staring at her in disgust. After months of this, her pride was shattered into a million pieces. One night, a faint noise from her room woke me up. I rushed in to check on her. She had managed to hide a small razor blade and was trying to slice her wrists. "You want to die?" "In your dreams," I said. I tied her arms and legs to the bedposts, then carried her to the car and drove her to a long-term specialty care facility. On the way, she wept silently, repeatedly banging her head against the plexiglass partition. I knew she was pleading with me, begging me to let her die. "Never," I told her, my eyes on the road. "Death would be a release. I will never let you have that." Hearing my words, she closed her eyes in utter despair. At the facility, I paid a substantial fee and told the staff that she was a high suicide risk. They were to watch her around the clock. Because I knew the greatest punishment wasn't death. It was forcing her to live.